Lonesome Lands podcast, Lonesome Report. What were you talking about today, Shad?
I don't know. What are we talking about? It's December
Surprised him. He had no
15th,
idea that was coming.
10
We're
days
gonna,
away from Christmas.
yeah. I don't even want to hear that. Obviously, the biggest news of the week was the lonesomelands.com article on the beef checkoff funding the methane BS. But we're going to talk about also what I think is a very important podcast that, of course, people in agriculture aren't going to talk about, which is there's her name is Desiree Fixler. She was on Winston Marshall podcast. We're going to talk about that, which is kind of debunking all this climate stuff from someone
Right.
who started it, kind of.
Yeah.
Big news in agriculture, I guess, over the week. Am I forgetting something? I feel like there's such big news every other day, but
There is so much to go over. I don't even know where we start anymore.
um, the Maha movement, um, all the SNAP stuff is hard to keep track of, but they're dumping $700 million into a regenerative pilot program. And we're going to go
Yeah.
through that a little bit. American Prairie, is that American Prairie Reserve deal?
It used to be the American Prairie Reserve. It is now the American Prairie.
Oh, so okay, same thing. So
Yep.
um, I don't know what they're doing. Chad's going to tell us. And then a few other things we'll get to. Main thing, Lonesome Lands, we are supported. I was going to send out an email to all our past advertisers to see if we could get ads going. I'm a terrible ad salesman, probably worst ever in the world of podcasts. So shout out to all of our advertisers because I've never once asked, I've never cold called or wrote any, or put together much of a program. They just say, "Hey, can I advertise?" And I say, "You betcha." But also all of our listeners who click on subscribe and have since I think December 2023 is when I first offered a subscription to where you can support what we're doing, like the kind of like PBS. What is it? What do they
Yeah.
say? Brought to you by listener viewers like you. Remember that? You ever
No.
watch PBS?
No.
Market to market?
No.
Yeah, see, all you do is cattle. So market to market's the whole commodity.
I do remember the market to market
I
on
can
something.
remember. Did your dad watch it?
Yeah.
My dad watched it. I can remember thinking like it was the most boring show in existence. Like you couldn't find more boring people than, and I don't know. I haven't seen it for a long time, but when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God.
Wasn't, I mean, I think I remember my dad, wasn't Lawrence Welk on PBS too?
Oh yeah, my grandma watched Lawrence Welk. I mean,
My dad did too.
and
And
I'm reading a book now called The Great Plains, and Lawrence Welk is from Strasburg, North Dakota.
really,
Grew up farming. And there's more to it than that, but that's all I can really remember.
they should have sent him to Nashville.
Anyway, if you if you subscribed and have helped us out over the years, you're going to get a Christmas present, which is an ear tag engraved with our logo on the front and then your name and your phone number on the back.
Pretty
Should
cool.
be mailing out probably Wednesday. I have a few people who didn't include their phone number on their order, and now I got to email them. But anyway, you might get an email if you didn't include your phone number. Moving on. I guess that we talked about it last week. The beef checkoff has financed curriculum for agriculture through American Farm Bureau Foundation, which that we could go forever on. And did you know National Cattlemen's Beef Association has a National Cattlemen's Beef Foundation, which is
Yes.
like a whole nother nonprofit? Like they're a nonprofit, and then they have a whole nother nonprofit. I don't know. It just seems like such a scam, all these nonprofits. And for me, going back to our subscription, I could easily be a nonprofit, but I don't want to be. I mean, we're here to profit, right? NCBA is the biggest agriculture business out. You click on their website, and which is National Cattlemen's Beef Association. They get all our checkoff dollar, or are in charge of really of all the checkoff money. You click on their website, and it's a pop-up ad for something every day. They partner with John Deere. They partner with Corteva for everything.
Oh yeah.
They make a pile of money. Anyway,
Pharmaceuticals.
they force cattle producers to give $1 per head for every animal that they sell. That goes into a fund which is supposed to promote beef. They have this education contract that goes through American Farm Bureau. one of the education curriculums, they called it a task, was called Cattle and Climate, a Methane Connection, I believe is what it was called, but I can't find it anymore. Although, actually, I printed it off just in case they got rid of it. So on the thing, so I did a whole article about it. We talked about it on the podcast last week, and now it's gone through there. So they promote it on the Checkoff website, and there's a link where you can click to see the lesson. And you
Are
click
you
that
saying
link,
it's gone?
lesson's gone. It's off of all the tasks. There's still all of the tasks there, which one of the tasks that's not promoted by the Beef Checkoff, so I didn't go in too hard on it, but I'm sure American Farm Bureau is probably connected somehow. I don't know. But another one of the tasks that's really bad is, but it's not near as bad as this one, but it's about genetics, and it's a lesson about genetics. So they are teaching kids about genetics. In order to do that, they teach them how to select a bull based on its carbon footprint, how to
Yeah,
reduce
environmental output.
emissions through
Yeah.
genetics. Yeah, and like the final question for the lesson is how can you like calculate the carbon footprint for a hamburger and how to reduce the emissions for a hamburger patty by changing your genetics in the cattle thing. So it just goes back to cattle emissions bad, cattle emissions bad, cattle emissions bad. But yeah, this was methane and cattle, a climate connection. That was funded through the checkoff. Has this little beef checkoff. If you're listening, I'm pointing to the beef checkoff. And my printer doesn't print. I don't know why. It just doesn't print in color anymore. So it would have been nice to have that nice little red check on there, but it's actually black and white. Anyway, so we talked all about that. I laid it all out. The goal of the lesson is to teach children not that cattle create methane. Methane's horrible for the environment. How can you create this model to show farmers and ranchers that methane is terrible for the environment? And then how do you convince farmers and ranchers to reduce their methane emissions through feed additives and genetics and all that different stuff? And so that, it was widely debated, I guess, a lot of comments on it.
Yeah, it really was.
And you didn't know about it. I guess you gave your reaction last week, but I guess, what do you think?
Well, it just takes me back to COVID and the beginning. Not COVID wasn't the beginning, certainly, but it really pushed into the ESG, environmental social governance model of sustainable development. And I can remember telling everybody, I don't. I was surprised that we have lived long enough in my lifetime to see a nation full of people who are trying like hell to get rid of their own food supply. That's really what it reminds me of.
Well, not just,
And
yeah. Go
well,
ahead.
the fact that we are paying for this kind of indoctrination and education when we already have a sector of the consumers who are not for us, and we're pushing that into schools where we know that these young kids are very malleable. And I think it's just absolute nonsense. And really, American producers are paying for an ideology that they don't believe in. Now, here's the deal. When we pay into a checkoff, we pay for promotion, research, and education. That's what it was created for. That is not an ideology. Those are just simple tasks and facts that we want to promote in research, education, and promotion of the product we work so hard. But when you change that over and you push that in to an educational system, that becomes an ideology. And I am not for paying for my demise through an alternative ideology. And that's really what the war on beef is.
Yeah, if you actually read the Beef Order Act and Order, which is where they force you to pay for this, it's
Yep.
research and promotion of cattle and beef.
And
That's what's really been lost.
that's
Because
right.
this is the opposite of a promotion of
Absolutely.
cattle.
And also of the act, of the beef act, you the main position of the whole beef act and order is to expand markets. Expansion of markets. Everybody needs to go through and read that. That is the most important part of that is the expansion of markets. And what we're doing here is we're limiting markets. That's what this is doing. By telling people, teaching kids to say, okay, we got to be more sustainable. If you don't produce this way, you can't get into the market. That's a reduction of markets. And that's really where this is going. Just the opposite of what the act is intended to do, Jim.
Yeah. And if you look at this genetic argument that they're making, like let's change the genetics to have a low emission, the goal there, they'll all talk about efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. Well, the other part of efficiency is they want less cattle. And that's in that the actual genetic lesson is how do you create a genetic line that is less emission creates less emissions, but also more efficient so that it takes
Right.
fewer cattle to raise
Right. That's
more
it.
beef, right?
And fewer cattle
Yeah,
is not an expansion of markets. It is
right.
subtraction of
Yeah,
markets.
it's doing the opposite. So, and when you have
Yeah.
the checkoff involved in those programs, it's
It's
just become
unbelievable.
blatantly obvious.
It is.
And while it's harder and harder to making excuses for, I guess. But there
Uh-huh.
are still one thing I felt like in the reaction to what I wrote and stuff, no matter what, you could, I mean, this is just plain as day. Cattle are bad for the environment and we have to change what we're doing, all right?
And we're
That's
going to
what the
teach
beef
you how to
checkoff is
tell.
saying.
Yeah. And
And
we're
there's
going to
still
teach you how
people
to
who
tell
are,
these producers that.
yeah, there are still people who are sticking up for it and saying it's the right thing to do. And well, you can't get around that methane's bad for the environment or any of that stuff. It's insane. And that's what I felt like with the react. I mean, some people really lost their minds, and I'm not even going to get into it, but there's just just brainwashed people by the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. It don't matter what the beef checkoff does, they would stick up for it and defend it and promote it and every other thing
And
too.
most of them have a tie to the money.
Yeah.
That's just it. They don't want to lose any jobs. And there's a
Or
lot of
just
money
I
that there's a lot of money that flows through there that everybody gets a little piece of the pie, and that is not forgotten. Don't think it is.
but also they don't want to lose their connection with the bigwigs, right? To go to the convention, CattleCon, and all of that crap, and be part of that whole deal, I guess. And that's the
Uh-huh.
other thing about the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, which I don't look at their stuff that much, but every time it's just an ad. It's like, come to our convention. Their convention costs thousands of dollars. It costs, depending on how many cattle you have, it costs tons of money to even be a member. I mean, I don't know. And somebody mentioned once that we were mentioned on this Cattleman to Cattleman TV show. And so I kind of sat down and watched it and fast forward. And what it is a promotion for the beef checkoff. It was a promotion for their convention. It was what you can do in Nashville while you're at the convention. And then they talked about the cattle business for, I don't know, 10 minutes. It was like, it's just such a joke. And they pay to have, I'm pretty sure the way RFD TV is you pay to have your program on their channel and then you go and sell your ads and you
Oh yeah.
and so it's not like, an actual program like we want to have you on so that we can get more viewers. It's like,
Hmm.
hey, can we pay you and we'll have a program on
Yeah.
you? And then I'm sure your checkoff dollars go into that program, go to putting that stupid thing on TV. I don't know.
Oh, well,
Anyway,
the common theme back in um, the late or early 2010s was we have to sit at the table uh, to be a part of this so we don't get eaten. And boy, that is coming back to haunt us, especially with what you shared on this, ESG global governance, this whistleblower lady that you just talked about. And she nailed it all down. I mean, I listened to that and she nailed the war on beef down to a T. None of us freedom fighters were wrong about that.
right.
And she
She,
even mentioned sitting at the table.
yeah. And didn't mention the cattle industry or agriculture at all once, but it's just everything. She talked about this
Yep.
Economic Forum has their tentacles in every aspect of your
Everything.
life.
It's all interwoven.
Right. And if people who don't realize that, but once you start seeing it, you see it everywhere. Every time you
everywhere.
see the word sustainability in agriculture, which is real easy to do because I don't have the magazine, but the new cover of the Drovers, Sustainable Ag Smart Business, is the cover story. And this lady, to go back who she is, she was the Sustainable Development Officer for Deutsche Bank.
That's right.
That was like her last job, which is one of the biggest banks in the world. If you saw The Big Short, the guy who's trying to sell the insurance on the mortgage-backed security, the what's the actor's name? Ryan Gosling. You know who Ryan Gosling is, Shad?
I do.
Oh, okay. That's his character. He worked for Deutsche Bank. And it was funny because Deutsche Bank was selling mortgage-backed securities, but he came in and he understood that it was all going to collapse, and so he actually sold the shorts also, and made a ton of money. But anyway, that's who Deutsche Bank is, and um, so she was the security or sustainability development officer.
Yes.
She went through all this, and the whole ESG thing, was linked to her. But at some point, she realized that it was all BS and that everything that she was given, she talked about their like ESG report and their
And that was the key, is the ESG report
yeah,
is what,
all of these reports and stuff were just filled with lies. And
yeah.
so she went to leadership in well, I'll put a link to the podcast. It's
Yeah,
it
it's
is
great
something that everyone
podcast.
should listen to.
Absolutely.
But she went to like leadership in the corporate in the bank, and they told her um we're not doing anything about this. And then they fired her because she said, I can't print this. They fired her. Then they put the report out anyway. There was a
Yeah, it was the
big,
annual report, which is
yeah,
a living document, she says,
right.
and it
Which
was
is,
filled with the lies. She warned them about the lies that were in it about everything, and they said we're not changing it. And in 2 weeks, she didn't have a job, and then all hell broke loose against her.
yeah. But then in the end, she said she had a friend at Wall Street Journal, which is almost kind of like, it's like you look at these people who are able to make a difference, like the mods who had a friend at Tri-State Livestock. It's
Well,
good to have a friend who's a journalist.
yeah,
But yeah, they ended up writing an article about it in Wall Street Journal, and then it came back. There was an investigation, and a bunch of people were fired from the bank because it was all a bunch of BS and lies. And she had it. She had all the receipts on them too. But then she goes into how you know she was part of the World Economic Forum. She had met
yep,
Klaus Schwab, all of these bigwigs, and she's pretty self-aware too because she talks about how you know, she was propped up by these people and told how important she was. And
used.
that was
Yeah,
a
she
big
said
part of it.
it really affected her ego.
Right.
And she's like, I'm the chief sustainability officer at Deutsche Bank. And she says, I am in control of $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And she said, if you don't think that doesn't affect you, it does.
Right. But it also goes into, oh, you're so important because of, I mean,
Yeah,
her deal was environmental stuff. So it was a lot of climate stuff, but it was also this diversity, equity, inclusion, all that. But people were
that's
telling her
right.
how important she was. But then it reminded me of these awards, the Environmental Stewardship Award given
Yep.
out to cattle people. It's like, how can we make people feel important and keep
Right.
this kind of stink
Cruise going.
right and keep people
Yeah.
promoting us and whatever. But yeah. But then she talked about what you said too during COVID is when it exploded. And if you think back, 2021 National Cattlemen's Beef Association convention was when they came out. They didn't call it net zero because that would tie them straight into this deal, but it's the same thing. They came out with their climate neutrality goal of in 2040 for the entire cattle industry. They said the
Right.
entire cattle industry is committed to climate neutrality in 2040. That is what the leadership of the industry decided. The people who are in charge of this checkoff money and the whole
That's
thing.
right. Well,
Um,
and she made a point to say, it was very important for these industries to buy in. They had to buy into
yeah,
the lie, and that's what the triple bottom line of sustainable development is ESG, and that's buying into the notion that the climate change lie, which she has confirmed, that's all that was to become a top down auditor or governance, system of governance over everything we produce and everything we consume.
Right. And she talked about how, you know, it was all kind of BS there, but also how everyone got involved. Like every corporation, major corporation, Fortune 500, they all went to this Davos World Economic Forum.
Yes.
And I mean, Vilsack went and he spoke. Trump actually went and spoke and he told them how wrong they were.
Yeah, he told them they were stupid.
Um, and that was like in 16 or 17 when he first got elected. And I think that, you talk about every corporation in the world being against the president at the time, and you look at what's going to go on the next 3 years, we still have that. They're not giving up. But a lot of this stuff is definitely getting rolled back. And to listen to them talk, because I think she lives in London, and this Winston Marshall is obviously British. And so they talked a lot about what's going on in Europe, which Europe is way, as far as instituting
They're
all of this crap,
they're lost. Yeah,
way ahead of us. As
way
far
ahead.
as, I mean, you talk about Denmark has a methane tax on cattle.
Yeah.
They're required to feed this Bovar, which is a low emission feed additive, all this stuff.
Yes.
Um, and the US is just kind of rolling into that now at this exact same time where it's all getting rolled back. But this push still, it's funny to listen to this and then to go back to, we've talked a lot about that Key Jim interview, who is, I'm pretty sure he's probably like the biggest cattle owner in the US, wouldn't you think? I mean, I'm just taking a guess, but
I don't know.
just maybe not owner, but he's in control of
In
major
control
tons
for
of
sure.
feedlots, and he's putting in this massive feedlot and methane digesters, all that stuff. And he talked about if you don't think ESG is the future, then you're living in a world of denial. This lady helped create the ESG program, and she is talking about how it's all BS and it's starting to die. Like it's getting pushed out.
Well, there it is. Number one, we had to remember that the World Economic Forum is a non-governmental agency. They have no control, no
Right.
power. They just have influence, and they use the crisis of climate change to influence and scare. It's a scare tactic into creating this system of governance, a top-down system of governance. And one thing that she said that really got my eyebrow raised was that how they convinced government agencies to collude with these non-governmental agencies to push this. And that was really the first time in history that had ever taken place on this level. Obviously, it had taken place under Hitler and Stalin through public-private partnerships. But this was the first time that a non-governmental agency actually had authority or created its realm of authority over governmental agencies. And that was what the danger was. So when Trump comes in and he says, we're rolling this back, then we had the World Economic Forum and their very devious and demonic support system out there doubling down. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. You're not seeing anybody in the middle, Jim. You're seeing them kick it out, or you're seeing them double down. And we're going to continue to spread the truth of the
Yeah, and
lie
the
of
cattle
climate change.
industry, like as far as leadership, is doubling down.
It's
They
just
are all
leadership, though.
right. Yeah.
It's not producers. It's just
But
leadership.
yeah, so in one of the links I put in that article I did last week was Beef Improvement Federation wrote an
Uh-huh.
article in the Beef magazine, and it's all about promoting a low emission genetics.
Yeah.
And the Beef Improvement Federation is all of the breed associations. It's a federation of all of the breed, Hereford, Angus. It's every breed association in the U.S. Pretty much. I mean, it's a big long list of them, and they're all involved in this federation. And at their convention, they had the CLOC people, which CLOC is a machine that measures methane. And when you listen to this podcast, it also ties it into like, because he keeps saying, why would people do this if it's not profitable? And she was like, it is very profitable for some people because, like the windmill corporations or the CLOC Corporation or Farm Journal, right? Who
Right.
this is their magazine,
Right.
$40 million grant.
Right.
It is very profitable for, Farm Journal partnered with NCBA in that $40 million grant, and Ducks Unlimited and
Yep.
ABS
Yep.
genetic line also. I think the picture was of an ABS guy, like these semen people, the guys, these corporations that sell semen, and genetic lines are looking at this emission genetic line as like, you know, and Jack Payne will always talk about the Angus bulls, these guys that want to sell these high-end Angus bulls because that ties into his arch nemesis common ground, but that goes into also like our skepticism of common ground. um I guess if you're not familiar with common ground, it's a group that kind of anointed themselves to be a voice of whoever signs on to their coalition. But Joe Goggins, a big Angus breeder,
Well,
and Jake Parnell, I think, are the two guys that started the thing, and he's partnered with somebody who's on the Angus Association board.
it's and really, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about things, and the World Economic Forum is a group of self-selected stakeholders. That's what they call them.
Right,
And that's what kind of common ground is,
right,
self-selected stakeholders, trying to promote what she was calling stakeholder capitalism, which was really, in her words, socialism. But she was kind of wrong about that. You can call it socialism, but it was actually just communism, because socialism is just voluntary communism. That's all it is. And so
well,
to understand sustainable development, you need to understand, Jim, the importance of what stakeholder means, right? These are the people that self appoint to control what you do.
right. It means you're not a shareholder. It's
That's right.
everybody. It's not just a
Correct.
shareholder. It's everybody. They're working for everyone. That's what they tell you, right? The good of all, right? Which
Yeah.
goes into, but yeah, her whole thing was socialism is state controlled, and how they'll implement these regulations and how they'll work them in. And when she was talking about that, I was like, oh, that's the CID deal. Like,
Yep.
I mean, you think
Yep.
about it. Like, if you told your grandpa, you know, they're going to force us what kind of ear tags we can use so that they can be read by electronics, like that just, they shouldn't, that's just un-American. And it goes into the whole, I mean, I, I, I won't get off on that tangent, but
Well, so I guess one of the questions I have is, how is this going to shake out in the future? I mean, are you know are we going to submit to that stakeholder capitalism, ESG, production control, or are we going to bypass the system and actually, a lot of people are creating these organizations. You and I were just talking about it, to bypass the current economic system or the corporate system. The truth is, can we bypass that? Can we kill that corporate system? And the answer is yes, we can, but it's up to Congress, right? I mean, we're seeing the effects of that in Lexington, Nebraska right now. A lot of people were like, you don't want those plants to close down, which is true. But the fact that Tyson closed that plant down, with a $440 million, profit, and their CEO making $22 million, and they're driving an airplane, a private jet everywhere, while these people are losing their jobs and their livelihood and the community is at risk, is an exact example of the control that these concentrated hubs of power have.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I went
And
down that.
no, I mean, it's exactly right. And you talk about
Which,
where we are going in the future. I think this is getting, that is being shown more and more. Like they're having a harder and harder time hiding, right? Like in
Mhm.
2015, Tyson Foods, and that's the other thing. People, I think we got into this last time, but a lot of people are like, boy, I hope Tyson sells that to another beef
They'll never
processor
sell it.
or something. I'm like,
It'll sit
you're not
empty.
familiar with what you're talking about because
Exactly.
I mean, there's one up the road here in Denison, Iowa that's been empty for, I don't know, so I think 2015, so 10 years, and they have a
Plainview,
full-time
Texas.
security guard sitting outside, just
Yeah.
They would, and so in Cherokee, Iowa, they were forced to sell one. It went through a big long lawsuit. They closed the plant down. It killed the town, just like in Lexington. It was the main employer. I think the town owned the property that the plant sat on, and then Tyson owned the property. As it got kind of complicated into that, but the town ended up forcing them to sell to a another process or to sell it. But part of the deal that Tyson forced themselves into was they put a quota on how much beef could be processed in the place. And so guess what happens? Tyson knows what it takes to stay in business. And
Sure.
so they put a quota on how much beef to be processed, and they put a bunch of rules on these people, and they were broke within a few years. It was like Iowa Food Group or something like that is what it was
Yeah.
called. Um, and so yeah, I mean that's how these corporations operate. You think anybody flying around on that private jet gives one shit about anybody in Lexington, Iowa, or Lexington, Nebraska, or the town, or anything else? It could turn to dust and blow away. They wouldn't care. I mean, but
Well,
then you get into all these people who are like, oh, beef packers aren't that bad because it's like Rollins said on our podcast. There are a lot of good people that work at these corporations, right?
absolutely.
And there are
Absolutely.
good cattle buyers that go around these feedlots, and they're good, they're guys who grew up on ranches and on farms, and they got a job in the industry because they love it. And, but they're not connected to the guys who are flying around on the private jets making
Sure.
those decisions that close those
Sure.
plants down. And so, you get into where it's like, well, don't talk bad about Tyson because I know people that work there. Well, yeah, but you do. But I mean, they could get fired tomorrow and nobody would, the leadership wouldn't care.
Well, there was a fantastic letter. I don't know if you saw it on
I saw it got
social.
shared quite a bit. I probably should have
Yeah,
shared it myself.
a guy
That was
by the
good.
name of Jason Douglas, who's the CEO of the regional hospital there, and he made a excellent letter with great points in it, and invited other industries to come and take the place,
Mm-hmm.
because Lexington had the workforce structure to go there, and I'm sure there are 3,200 people with families who are totally confused on what they're going to do after Christmas or January
Mm-hmm.
20th. But it does just lend itself, Jim, to the power of the concentrated system and the danger of that. It can turn over in one day. One day, those people's lives were different, and it's pretty tough. So my prayers are with them, and I hope we can bypass the system and create more.
Right. When you talk about the future of where things are going,
Yeah.
that lady talked about how kids are being indoctrinated. She said that on the podcast. And then we talk about, these education materials that cattle people are forced to fund that are pushing
Yes.
the same stuff.
It's an
Um,
ideology.
but then we talk about the magazine. Have you seen anyone else? I should introduce the show at the beginning. We are your place to come. We're the one place I feel like that's consistently talking out against this BS and
The
against this
truth.
push and all of that stuff. I mean, I know RCAF as an association has kind of done some things against it and that, but as far as media,
Well, if there's any, as far as trade organizations go, RCAF USA is the only one that holds policy flat out against
like the
these
ESG plans and
the
stuff.
ESG and these moves. As far as the media goes, there is a very short list of people that are talking about it. It'll become more popular as people start to lose their liberty and freedom and actually worry about where their food is going to come from. Maybe I borrow worries down the road, but I could see this coming, 20 years ago, and especially around 2010 with the advancement of the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. And then half of my neighbors decided that was a good idea. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? You're just giving your livelihood away under a system of control. And so there's a lot of people of my neighbors that don't like me that are finally coming around and saying, hey, what's going on? I'm like, we've been talking about this since 2010. So it's really wild, but hopefully we wake people up. I know that the Lonesome Report. I was in a restaurant today, Jim, and a very liberal journalist came up to me and said, "I'm loving the Lonesome Report, Shad." So that was
Journalist,
cool. Yeah, she's a
ag
journalist.
journalist, or
Nope, just
okay.
a local journalist. And she's not something small. She's used to work for CNN. She used to work for, who else did she work for? I can't remember. Maybe Wall Street Journal, one of them big
Yeah.
ones. And she lives in our little local community here. And she's like, we like it.
Well, what this podcast reminded me of is, I think it was 2 years ago. I'm driving to South Dakota, ready to give this speech that I was given the speech I wanted to hear, I guess, that no one had really come out and talked about, which is why the agriculture industry has bought in on this lie of climate change,
Yeah.
right? Which has
Yeah.
been pushed more and more and more, and now we're kind of seeing it fray, I guess. I'm hoping, but yeah, and I was like, I wonder how this will go over, But I mean, uh, it's been embraced by the actual producers. But what's crazy is that the people, the media, the corporations, all that stuff, it's hard to admit you're wrong, I think. And that goes into it.
I don't know.
But that's where
I just think it's hard. I just think it's hard for
that
them
was
to give
funny.
up.
That was funny. I go, it's hard to admit you're wrong. You're like, I don't know about that. I don't know nothing about that.
Well, listen, it's hard for them to relinquish their trail of money. That's what it
Oh
is.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's
But
what it is.
also, even some of these people who are, this goes back to standing up for the checkoff. They've promoted the checkoff and supported it for years and years. And now, even when it's blatantly obvious in their face that it's wrong, what they're doing is wrong right now, they'll still back it up because it's
But a
just,
lot of those people, their main source of income that are backing it up is not the beef industry. They've had other
oh yeah,
sources of
I know.
income. I mean, that's
It's
just
always, if you ever look them up, it's always
exactly,
something else.
exactly. But I can remember about 5 years ago, it was during COVID. Well, when they had the NFR in Dallas, they moved the NFR to Dallas. There we had a booth at the NFR, and we talked about, we were promoting the checkoff reform, the beef checkoff reform, and a lady from the Texas Beef Council comes up and she starts chewing on our gals that was in there, and she says, well, what am I supposed to do about a job? And
Yeah.
my thought was, is that the only reason you appreciate the checkoff is because it provides you a job?
Well, I think
I
that, I
mean,
mean, it does provide tons of jobs
yeah,
that are really unneeded.
I know.
Every state has a state beef council.
Yep.
I don't know what the hell they do besides hand out money to like here in Iowa, it's like, we'll write checks to Iowa Cattlemen's Association.
Well, a lot of them have really nice eat beef or beef first license plates in the sale barns that are pretty cool.
Right. Uh, all right. I guess to go into the big news, the regenerative pilot program. We'll move into that because one thing I did say, so my whole bit anti climate change came out where my eyes were really open was the Climate Smart Commodity Project, which is $3 billion government program based on measure, monitoring, reporting, verifying greenhouse gas emissions. And so when this, and what one thing I said about that, like, how do we fix that? We have this $3 billion program that the ag secretary, and they came out like right when Trump got elected and Rollins was confirmed. She came out and said, we're getting rid of all of the climate stuff off of the website. But then I think what they found out is there's a bunch of, yeah, I think they got hit with like lawsuits, and there are contracts out there, already signed contracts, and the Iowa Soybean Association was all against it because they got $90 million from this contract for measuring greenhouse gas emissions and all of that stuff. But I said, like, the way you take that program and turn it into a soil program, right? Like a soil
Mm,
quality program where you're not measuring greenhouse gas emissions, and that's kind of what this is a little bit. It's definitely not, there's always things to be wary of, I guess, with this stuff. But yeah, I mean, it has absolutely nothing to do with carbon emissions, which is great. But yeah, this pilot program, um, NRCS, it's through National Resource. What am I saying? NRCS.
National or what is wrong with us? You're gonna have to cut that out.
Conservation system,
Not
right?
Natural
Conservation
Resource Conservation Service. Natural
service.
Resource Conservation Service.
We just always say NRCS. I don't even know why I tried to spell it out. Screwed everything up. Anyway, their regenerative pilot program, a farmer first outcomes based approach to conservation designed to return the agency to its core mission, helping people help the land, which I think return the agency means return from the climate insanity.
Well, you have
Um,
to remember under Executive Order 14008, the 30 by 30, which, Biden signed into law, to set 30% of the land and waters aside for preservation in the United States by 2030. They made contracts with farmers and ranchers across the nation to put their productive land into conservation, right? So those contracts were long term. And so when Trump got in, he had to honor those contracts because those were built in to these people's business model through, especially if they had a business model based on a farm service agency loan. So they couldn't renege on that.
yeah. And so 400 million through the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, the EQIP program, and 300 million through the Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP. One of the things it just mainly talks a lot about soil quality and practices on the farm. Under requirements, I think is interesting. I'll put a link to this in here too.
Well, what I think is kind of cool about this is that this pilot program is not just for beginning farmers.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
You can be an established farmer and participate in this program. And I don't know. I need to look into it more and see if I can I can participate. But
Yeah.
that's one of the big things about it that I think is probably cool is it's not just, so many of those other programs are just geared towards a certain sector of producers. We talked about a couple weeks ago with a guy that, was talking about how Trump picked winners and losers. And I said, can you give me an example of that? And he could not. And I said, let me give you an example of how the Biden administration picked winners and losers. And one of those programs was where the Biden administration decided they would pay off uh, farm service agency loans for socially disadvantaged, which would be the black farmers and
In minority
Indians,
groups, yeah.
minority groups, right? And then that got a capuche because the others started pushing back on it. But those are things that have to be considered, and that's what's different about this. It is including everybody. That's my point.
Yeah. One thing I think that people will probably bristle up at is a whole farm assessment under requirements.
Mhm.
The first one says whole farm assessment.
Yeah.
Complete assessment of all resource concerns is required with the goal of establishing a whole farm plan before the end of the contract period, which means they want to come in and assess your entire operation, which does kind of make sense because if you're, you know, I wonder how much Joel Salatin was involved in this because RFK Jr., I think, was a big part of this, and he's in that group, like the real regenerative people. Do you know who was involved?
I do not.
Right. The announcement was
It
Mullins and
sounds like,
RFK Jr.
yeah, it sounds like this. They're going to create this council, which I like the part of the council. They were going to trade council members off every so often. They would
Yeah.
rotate them off the board so no one person could get control or power over that. And I like that
Right.
idea too. But listen, it's like with every other government program. If you don't want the government getting into your business and you want the freedom to produce how you see fit, don't tie yourself to the federal government.
Right. But I mean, the whole farm assessment go back. It's just so somebody doesn't be like, well, I have got this little turnip farm over here in the corner and apply for a loan, apply for the grant or whatever. They got to be real serious about this thing, and that's what's going to make them. And I'm sure we're going to get people keep the government out of agriculture, right? I feel like that toothpaste is out of the tube. When you get into ethanol, when you get into everything. Like the government, these conservation
Absolutely.
programs who've been around my entire life. I mean, really since the 30s, there have been
Since
conservation
the
programs.
drought of
Um,
the 30s, the Dust Bowl.
yeah. And so I don't know how you get and a lot of the conservation issues back then, people were for because their ground was blowing away.
Well, they were
Um,
desperate. Their
yeah.
backs were against the wall. Everything was gone. They had nothing left, including food. And I can remember my grandfather, he grew up in the Depression. And I've told you this before, to get by, they drank curdled milk. They sold the cream and they let the milk curdle. Well, he said when the government come out with subsidies and help for these farmers, he said the biggest issue was these farmers lowering their pride to take the help. He
Hmm.
said people there were he said I he told me of one instance where a farmer couldn't do it and he committed suicide. And
Hmm.
not just because he couldn't take the help, but because he was so pressured. And then once you take that help, I can especially see this back then during the 30s because these people had come west to build this dream. And when it's taken away or it flies away, that blows away, the economy crashes, they overproduced, crashed the economy. These people's dreams were shattered and they had nowhere to go. They didn't have any food. And so the last bit of dignity they had, Jim, was not to take the help.
Hmm.
And they just lost it all. And so that became one of the biggest issues of the Dust Bowl was taking help from the government.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess this program's out there. We'll put a link to it. Right. And I guess to go back to what you were talking about, the whole thing with this climate deal and the carbon market, all of that stuff was you had to be you said people who've been doing it for years and years can still get involved. For that thing, you had to, they called it additionality at first, where it's like my family we've no-tilled and cover cropped and done that for years and years, and we weren't, not that we wanted to sign up, but we weren't eligible to sign up because you had to show how you were improving.
Hmm.
So if you're doing everything the right way right now,
Yeah,
you
you
couldn't even
don't.
get involved in the carbon
Right. No,
market because
absolutely.
it's all
That's,
about reduction. You have to verify reduction. And that goes into why this whole genetic line of cattle is being pushed because there are people who see it as a big money deal in the carbon market and all of that. They want to be able to verify that they're reducing their emissions
yeah,
because that's where the
yeah,
money comes from in that deal.
yeah,
But
definitely.
the other thing is, I've talked about this before, how these people involved in this ESG, and I mean, it's like you said with the Checkoff deal. What about their jobs? Like there are a lot of people went to school for ESG or DEI or all of this stuff, or even like the windmill deal. Like those people aren't just giving up. They're going to be campaigning for the next 3 years, and their
Hmm.
life and livelihood depends on the scam continuing. And so they're going to be campaigning for someone unlike Donald Trump, who isn't going to call climate change a hoax and try to get rid of all this stuff. They see themselves as, if they can last these next 3 years and get somebody in there that will go back to these $3 billion climate programs, then they can get back to normal. And that's the other thing I want, or people need to keep in mind that this fight is really going to get heated here over the next few years, and agriculture is going to be involved in it. And when you hear people talking about how, they hate Trump, like I saw this, for some reason the Arkansas farmers just, I don't know if it's Clinton country or what it
Yeah, it
is,
is.
but
It is.
they just are all in on Trump has destroyed them, and it's like the campaign. They're on MSNBC, and there's this video of a big farmer talking about how all multiple friends killed themselves, which I'm not saying they didn't, but it's just like a campaign. It's the campaign's ramping up. Um,
Well, let me ask you a question. Um, with all of this climate change lie and the carbon scams that's coming with it, and the basic foundation, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, is that all of this comes off of the back of the American worker, right? This is all the foundation of all of this is through taxpayer funds, right? It's all subsidized.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that some of these people don't, you know, tie or connect that to is when you tax and insure producers out of a job, there is no longer a tax base to take from. So one day, this pot that all of this money is coming from could dry up because what it is it's an attack on land and liberty, right? This is all about getting control of the land. Well, if there is no more people, and this coming from the World Economic Forum, if there is no more people to produce off the land or produce from a business that they own, who are the main taxpayers of our country, where is all this going to come from? Those people that are depending on these, the carbon scam, won't have a job anyway. And I think that's something that we need to look down the road and consider. What is real and what's not? I guess that's where I'm going.
Well, that could lead right into one thing that was been on my list for a couple weeks. So shout out to Kyle Hemmert. Am I saying that right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Reposted the Kansas Department of Agriculture. Last week, KDA partnered with the New Mexico Department of Agriculture to host a beef genetics trade team from Mexico. 7 Mexican cattle producers traveled across Kansas to tour a diverse set of operations, including the Smoky Y Ranch, Weddell Beef Genetics, High Choice Feeders, B&D Herefords, and Angus McCurry Angus Ranch. Throughout the tour, the delegation connected with Kansas ranchers to learn about their operations, breeding philosophies, selected bloodlines, and innovative technologies driving herd improvement in our state. Visits like these strengthen relationships with international partners and support demand for high quality U.S. beef genetics. Demand for U.S. beef genetics. You go into, if I can remind you of who is pushing the Beef Improvement Federation, all of these purebred outfits, herd associations are pushing this genetic this genetic deal that they want to be able to export and sell to you in Mexico. KDA's international marketing team is proud to facilitate these connections and create opportunities for Kansas producers to share their expertise, expand global market access. Trade mission was made possible through funding from U.S. Livestock Genetics Export Incorporated. Um, if you go back, if you're a fan of the show and you can remember back when the soybean guys were all crying that they were going broke and it was all Trump's fault, but then what came out was actually the price was pretty much the same during Biden. But what we talked about is that over the past, like during my lifetime, the U.S. has exported all of their grain farming technology and
Expertise.
yeah, expertise to Brazil. And
Yep.
now Brazil is able to create
Yep.
these massive uh, yields of soybeans and corn. They have tons of ethanol plants that were built down there by Summit Ag Solutions. And I talked about an article that where they brought up a bunch of Brazilian farmers, Summit Ag Solutions brought or Summit Ag uh, whatever it is. I'm thinking of the carbon. It's the same outfit that's running the carbon pipeline as the Summit Ag, but they
Hmm.
brought up a bunch of Brazilian farmers and toured Iowa farmers. Iowa Soybean Association was part of it, just like Kansas Department of Agriculture is part of this. And then guess what? A few years later, China doesn't need to buy any U.S. soybeans anymore because they can buy them all from Brazil.
That's right.
Right? It's so stupid that people get behind this, and they're like indoctrinated by Kansas Department of Agriculture, U.S. Livestock Genetics Export Incorporated, which is going to make a ton of money exporting genetics to Mexico. Right? What's in it for the U.S. producers that are hosting these people and that are part of these associations and all this? I mean, you're going to bring Mexican producers onto your place, show them exactly how you do things, show them. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I don't get it. I don't get what, I mean, it's the anti-American first agenda.
Oh, Jim,
Um,
you're just a protectionist. You need to stop.
yeah,
Stop being a
100%.
protectionist. But it is tit for tat because in 2022, Kansas Department of Ag sent a coalition of 7 members to Mexico to help them learn how to produce a more viable animal genetically to fight, extreme weather conditions. So there you go.
Oh, so you're for this deal?
I'm not for it. No, I'm a protectionist and I make no bones about it. I think that we have offshored our food security, our national security. I think that I think we have a long way to go before we get ourselves back into a safety zone. So,
Yeah.
we talked today, you talk about Kansas Department of Agriculture. Well, the Texas Department of Agriculture released a statement today where Sid Miller thinks it's a good idea to open the border to rodeo stock or, selected sporting stock, is what he called it, to bring into the United States, right? When the greatest concern of the New World screwworm lies upon us. We have not sent that New World screwworm back south, and he wants to open the border. Of course, they're getting a lot of lobbying through, rodeo organizations. A lot of these team ropers get these team roping cattle out of Mexico. I
Oh,
understand that.
okay, okay, yeah.
I understand that, but we got to
But
be
as far
real
as a big
careful.
concern, like that's really what you're worried about is team roping calves? No. NFR's over, right? Can't be a ton of rodeos going on right now, is it? Can there? Only in, I suppose, in Texas. That's probably what they're worried.
They rope and barrel race every weekend in every town in Texas.
Yeah, right. Um, American Prairie. You want to get
Oh, the
into it?
American Prairie Reserve. If you didn't know what the American Prairie Reserve, it was a coalition of environmental organizations led by the World Wildlife Fund who decided that the northern shortgrass prairies, were in danger of extinction through ag production. And so we know that the World Wildlife Fund raises hundreds of millions of dollars per year globally. So they came into Montana about, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago, and decided that they were going to put together what they call the American Serengeti, which included 3 million acres, contiguous acres in Montana, to really recreate the what did we used to call it in the 1990s? The Buffalo Commons, right? They were going to open it up. The problem that came with this is that they were buying privately held ranches at above value prices. Those ranches came with state and federal leases, such as Bureau of Land Management. And so when that happened, we started seeing, a lot of those ranchers were selling out. Communities started dying, schools started closing. But what it was just a return to its natural system before any kind of westward expansion. The problem is it what they pushed for was to change the rules of these grazing situations on Bureau of Land Management. Okay, so they wanted buffalo to now be considered the same as livestock, and they have been successful in that. Secretary Burgum, Department of Interior, has taken on 3 lawsuits pushed or filed by the American Prairie. It used to be the American Prairie Reserve. It's now the American Prairie. He has taken on these federal lawsuits to evaluate whether the the buffalo can be subjected as livestock. And this is going to be, this has been a big fight in Montana with the BLM over the last several years. So we'll see where this goes. I'm really not sure. I need to get more in-depth knowledge of the whole situation. But I do know this, Jim, that I warned about the American Prairie Reserve, and they weren't going to stop there, and they haven't. They've come to South Dakota. They're coming to the Flint Hills of Kansas, the northern Oklahoma. They're in Texas now. Their whole goal is to recreate this Buffalo Commons. And if you weren't familiar with the Buffalo Commons in the early 1990s, it was a initiative that was drawn up by a husband and wife team, and I forgot their names, to really return the central part of the United States from Canada to Mexico back to the wild, back to the buffalo. And we see this movement in many, many states, including Colorado, with wildlife corridors, and a lot of, you know, state and federal agencies have bought into this and have been infiltrated by those ideologues, and they're going to push this. So that's another double down for Donald Trump and his administration to fight against. So I'm happy that Burgum has taken that on. I'll follow that real closely to see what happens there. But that's the gist of it.
Yeah, I think that's something that everyone should follow because
Mhm.
there is this land I have on my list for we're gonna get into is this land back movement, which is giving land back to the Indian tribes and just putting it back to nature and all of this. Those are the people, the Western Watersheds movement, all of
Wildlands
this.
projects.
Yeah,
Yep,
the
that's what
people
it
that want to
is.
get cattle out of public lands are all about buffalo. And that's a tool that they want to use to get cattle and ranchers off of the land.
And and so with that, let me give a little update on the King Ranch issue. As you well know, last week, Secretary Rollins came out with a letter threatening to remove funding from the state of Washington, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Department of Ecology if they did not drop the lawsuit and the fine and return the King Ranch, Wade and Teresa King, to production on their own ranch. That was met immediately with dissension from the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Ecology, and more lawsuits were levied against them. They're going to double down there. So we're following that story closely. And along with that, we talk about Montana being returned to the Buffalo Commons. I had a lengthy call, 2-hour call with a gentleman up there where two environmental organizations have sued a group of water right and water share owners on the Clark River, because they say they are endangering an already endangered bull trout. They need a little help there. And so we're going to work on that. But my point is that right in the middle of this, a partner with these two environmental organizations is the Western Watersheds. And, they have now not only partnered with um, a state park there in Montana, but they have these two Western Watersheds. And now, what you just said, they have engaged with a tribal council up there to stop the water flow down this ditch. And these are prior appropriated water rights from the 1880s that these people own that they're trying to stop. On top of that, we have covered the story of an older gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, in Washington State as well, that the Department of Ecology is trying to take his water rights. And so we've got these issues all over the United States that just never stop. But the good thing is we know where to find Secretary Rollins, and Secretary Rollins knows where to find President Trump, and President Trump knows where to find his very effective administrative peers. So there you go.
Yes. Secretary Rollins wrote an op-ed in USA Today. Did you read it?
I did not read it, but I saw that she did.
Oh, I
I
haven't
haven't
read it
had
either.
time.
I just clicked on it and here's a little quote to the
Okay.
little wet your whistle. As our very first president, George Washington, himself a farmer, told a joint session of Congress in 1796, it will not be doubted that with reference either to individual or national welfare, agriculture is of primary importance. How's that for a quote
Well, let me go
from
beyond
George
that.
Washington?
Let me go beyond that and tell you that with that quote, water is of the most importance to agriculture, and it has the greatest effect on all of it. So those are big fights that are coming down the road, and you know, some things never end. Nice cap.
The
When will
new
I?
hats are in.
They are
And
beautiful.
if you or this one's, I need to adjust the size. If you ordered, okay, so for people listening, I'm gonna get better at that. So I just put on a ball cap, new Lonesome Lands ball cap. If you ordered the old one, it's on its way. And sorry you didn't have this option before, but the new option. So now you can have two Lonesome Lands hats if you want. This one's got a leather patch on the front.
It's nice.
And I'm pretty much sold out. The old one got so back ordered that I've sold so many that my entire order is getting shipped out. So now I got to order some more. Merch, the
Is
whole
that your
merch
only
sale.
color?
What's that?
Is that your only color?
Well, I ordered another one that was navy and it
I
had another
really,
leather patch. It
yeah,
was navy and caramel on the back, if you
I
want to get.
really like that cap, Jim.
And then,
It's beautiful.
yeah, this is like, I was looking, I was like, boy, that'll get dirt. It's kind of your Sunday go to meeting if you need a
It
fancy
is
ball cap.
beautiful. Maybe you could send those out to your employees
Yeah, I'll see you one. I'll get you
for
one. I
one.
do have enough of these. But yeah, I'm not this merch deal. I've got a pile of order. I'm gonna be up till half the
I
night
guess
tonight.
I'll just fly up there and help you get that merch out before
I'm gonna need
Christmas
something.
because you only have 10 days, bro.
I know it. Yeah, I know it. Anyway, if you want a t-shirt, Stay Lonesome t-shirt, and I gotta reorder some of these.
I
How
don't
you
wear
like that?
t-shirts.
And then I got this one. This is the ones. Oh, I've got a lot of this one, which I really like. Sorry to everybody listening, but and I'm also sorry that audio is gonna be.
Now I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
see that one I wasn't sure about because it's real faint. I should have had the girl. The girl drew that, painted it, and I bought the design from her.
Excellent.
The same with see, and the other thing is, people have asked me. I think somebody tried to do a little gotcha and say, "Hey, where do you make sure all of your stuff you sell is made in the USA?" And I say, "Hell, I don't know." But what I did say is, the shirts come from. Well, I've been ordering the shirts from a local outfit here in Council Bluffs, but I'm going to start. I just got these. I drove to Atlantic, Iowa today, which is a rural community. Kid I went to high school with. I'm going to really focus on, buying all of my stuff from rural community.
Sure.
Supporting agriculture. The hats, the brown hats I got, were all ordered from. I think it's called Palmer. It was Ainsworth, Nebraska. This little
Put your
family
hat
that
on.
ranches, and then the wife runs an embroidery shop in town, Danielle Palmer. That was my first order, and I'm going to get a hold of her to maybe order some more stuff because that's what
Hey,
I
Jim.
really want to. I mean, we can all. That's the other thing. Like people who sell all this, you can easily go and type in, "I want to buy a hat in mass quantity or whatever," and it all is going to come from some big factory and who knows where. But my
Put
goal
your
is to
cap on,
really
Jim.
focus
Put your
on.
cap on.
Well, I was gonna.
You got a very long forehead. There you go.
Oh man, I gotta cover up. My wife tells me that I look great in a t-shirt. Should I put the t-shirt on? You want
No,
me to change my shirt right now,
no,
Shad?
no. I don't wear a t-shirt, so it don't mean nothing to me.
I wear them occasionally, not very often, but how do I look?
Don't
How's it
ask what
look? This is like the nicest t-shirt
it looks nice.
that you can buy, that money can buy. We shouldn't talk people out of wearing t-shirts. I wear them to ball games, softball games. Do I look like I'm ready for a softball game? Anyway, here we go. How do I look? Complete outfitted.
You look nice, except you look nice.
Except what? My long forehead? It's all covered up now.
No, it looks good. I love that hat. I do.
I know. Match my shirt good too. Well, the one underneath. I should start wearing t-shirts over my pearl snaps. What do you think?
No.
Christmas is coming. Next week will be the Christmas week. And then
Listen.
the week after that will be New Year's.
Well, let's get somebody good on. Let's get somebody exciting on. Let's
Oh,
get all that
that's a
merch
ton of
out.
pressure. I have a hard time getting myself on here.
No joke, but I can manage you a little bit. We're get that merch out so we don't lose any of our subscribers and
This is the
when we
easiest thing for me to do. Click subscribe or click
yeah.
support on the website. Get yourself this. I was thinking if you don't travel, you could hang it from your rearview mirror, your ear tag. Richie ear tag engraved with Lonesome Lands logo, your name and phone number on the back. Hook it to your suitcase, your rearview mirror, your dog collar, your dog's collar. Your dog runs off, somebody will find your phone number on that ear tag. I've seen that before. What else could you do with it, Shad? Come up with a creative thing to do. Stick it in the
Right.
cow's ear. There you
Yeah,
go.
you could put it in a cow's
We're
ear. I
picking out
mean,
show calves. Better than the EID.
yeah,
Got your
no,
phone
they'll
number right
force
on
you to
there.
put the EID in the show calf. That tag don't mean nothing.
Sage come
All
in
the
here. You want to be on, Sage? Here's our youth correspondent.
Hey, Sage.
What are you wearing, Dad?
Do you like the new hats?
That's what
Oh,
I
yeah.
asked too.
All right. Well,
All right.
see you next week, everybody.
Adios.